Friends, let us continue our discussion on complex reactions, and so far we looked at several examples of these complex reactions and simple schemes which are representative of complex reactions, and we saw some characteristics of such reactions using these simple schemes. We also saw two basic approximations that we use: quasi steady state approximation or quasi equilibrium approximation, which allows us to simplify the kinetics of the process. Today's session we will take a look at few examples and see how we derive the kinetics of these processes using the approximations that we saw in the last class. Now, the first question that we may ask ourselves is that how do we know that reaction is a complex reaction? So, the first indication that the reaction is a complex reaction comes from the fact that the order and molecularity of the reaction do not match. For example, if we look at oxidation of nitric oxide, or rather reduction of nitric oxide to give rise to nitrogen and water, the order of this reaction is given, or the kinetics is given by so the molecularity here is 4, 2 moles of NO and 2 moles of hydrogen. So, 2 plus 2 4, whereas the order is 3, 2 and 1 over here. So, that is a clear indication that this reaction is not occurring as a single step interaction between 2 molecules of NO and 2 molecules of hydrogen, but there is something else that is happening. So, that is one example. Another example we can look at is sucrose when it undergoes hydrolysis to give glucose and fructose. The rate of this reaction is given by an expression which looks something like this. It is not a power law kinetics, but it is a little more complicated reaction kinetics, and which says that rate is K some constant times Cs divided by Km plus Cs. And it turns out that this constant K is also not really a constant, but it is a function of pH of the media. So, in reality the kinetics and or the order and the molecularity once again do not match. So, how do we now get this kind of kinetic expressions when we have complex reactions? Now, before we start looking at few examples and deal with them, let us look at what is the approach for developing the kinetics of such reactions. So, what we essentially do is we write a mechanism of the reaction. So, mechanism of the reaction is nothing but the detailed description of the reaction as it takes place from reactant side to the product side. So, mechanism is the detailed description of the reaction, and we write the mechanism of a reaction with the understanding that each stage in this mechanism, or each step in this mechanism, is a elementary reaction. So, we have a reaction, it does not occur as a single step process as I said earlier, but it occurs as a multi-step process, and we further make an assumption that each step of this is an elementary reaction. If we take an example of sucrose, so I am just going to write this as S, going to glucose and fructose. This example actually is an example of a catalytic reaction, and it involves an catalyst E. Let us say we call that catalyst E. So, this is an overall reaction, and we write the mechanism of this reaction as a detailed description, and we will discuss about this in detail little later on, but at this point let me just say that what happens in this reaction is this sucrose binds to this enzyme E, gives rise to some complex. This complex interacts with water, gives rise to some other complex, let us call it as PT star. Then EP star gives us E plus G plus F. So, what we have done in short is we have written the overall reaction in terms of its constituent elementary reaction. Now, there are several things to be remembered when we write the mechanism. Mechanism of a reaction must explain the conversion of a reactant to the product. For example, I cannot have a mechanism of a reaction in which this fructose is not there. This is not a complete description, because the overall reaction over here has a product fructose, but if we omit fructose from our mechanism, then this is not a correct mechanism. So, it has to explain the entire now, and each step of this mechanism we say that it is a elementary step, and law of mass action kinetics therefore applies to such elementary steps. Then we can invoke either quasi steady state approximation or quasi equilibrium approximation and derive the kinetics of the process, which eventually leads us to the expression that we saw earlier. So, kinetics of complex process consists of first of all the overall reaction, the mechanism, then some assumptions, and the kinetic rate expression. So, now this is of course not always a one way street. We have to remember that whatever mechanism we write and whatever kinetic rate expression we get, it must be experimentally verified. That is, if I write a mechanism of this reaction and if I cannot experimentally verify that this is the correct rate, that is, I experimentally measure the rate of hydrolysis, I experimentally measure the sucrose concentration and see whether this kind of expression applies to that experimentally determined rate. If it does not, then I have made mistake either in writing the mechanism or making certain assumptions, and therefore, I will have to go back to my mechanism step and rework so that I get consistent kinetic rate expression. Now, in our discussions we will be following mechanism, assumptions, and what is the final kinetic rate that we get. We obviously cannot in these video tutorials verify them experimentally, but whenever possible I will try to show some data which says that indeed that is the case. Now, before we go on to examples, one more point to be noted, that when it comes to mechanisms, there are two kinds of mechanisms. One, what we call open sequences. This particular example or this particular case is an example of an open sequence. That is, what we have is, starting with reactant, we follow a series of steps which end up in product. So, to be brief, we have, let us say, reactant, we have reactants, intermediates, products. It need not be a linear sequence like this, but that is the order in which information is flowing. And there is, this is what we call open loop sequences. This catalysis is an example of an open loop sequence. The other type of mechanisms are what we call closed loop sequences. Closed loop sequences. Now, in these kind of mechanisms, what we have is, we start with reactants, they go to some intermediates, some more intermediates, which goes to products. However, unlike open loop, so this is what happens typically in an open loop sequence, but in a closed loop sequence, the intermediates, let us say at a later stage, go back to intermediates at an early stage, in a way closing the loop in a sequence of events. You probably are familiar with control terminology, open loop control, closed loop control, and so on. So, in that sense, this is an closed loop, because you are going in one particular direction, but at some stage there is a feedback into a previous stage, and this is what makes these sequences to be called closed loop sequences. So, we will start with examples of closed loop sequences, two examples, chain reactions, actually chain reactions and polymerization reaction, and see what happens to kinetics of these processes. So, let us look at chain reactions to start our discussion. We are going to look at complex reaction, chain reactions as first example, and there are several examples of chain reactions. Few I mentioned earlier, but let me reiterate once again. We have combustion reactions, which are chain reactions. We have decomposition reactions, we have auto oxidation reactions, polymerization reactions, and so on. All important reactions. Combustion reaction, of course, as the name suggests, any combustion process, hydrogen and water combining to form hydrogen and oxygen combining to form water, or burning of hydrogen, a combustion reaction. Decomposition reaction, that is breakdown of complex molecule into simpler molecule, and we are going to see an example of that. Auto oxidation, formation of peroxides, that is we looked at that example earlier, that is, you have a hydrocarbon, you imbibe oxygen into it, and it is a deadly combination, because both fuel and oxygen are together. And then of course, the polymerization reaction. So, let us start with an example of a chain reaction, decomposition reaction. So, decomposition of acetaldehyde. Now, what we have is acetaldehyde giving rise to methane and carbon monoxide. So, simple breakdown, and if it was a simple reaction, we would have expected the kinetics to be K into concentration of acetaldehyde, because the order is 1. So, first guess would have been a first order reaction, or rather the molecularity is 1. So, our first guess would have been a first order reaction. However, in reality the experimental data suggest that this particular rate actually has a order 3 by 2. So, its R is K into concentration of acetaldehyde raised to 3 by 2. A clear indication that it is not a complex reaction, and in fact this reaction actually takes place through several steps. And let us look at first the mechanism, and it is an example of closed loop sequence. So, that will also tell us why we call this as a closed loop sequence. So, what happens in the first step, that is the beginning of the reaction, is acetaldehyde breaks down to give radicals, free radicals actually. It gives methyl radical and acetyl radical, CH3 and CHO. So, that is the first step. I will go through this sequence and then see the proper terminology for this. So, we have what we call first reaction as initiation reaction. The reason for this will become clear as we move along. So, next step what happens is this methyl radical extracts an hydrogen from an acetaldehyde molecule and gives rise to first product methane and another radical CH3CO. This CH3CO breaks down to give methyl radical and the second product, namely carbon monoxide. So, once this third reaction takes place, as you can see there is a feedback, because the product of the third reaction, namely methyl radical, goes back as a reactant in the second step, further combining with acetaldehyde molecule and thereby closing the loop, and this reaction, in other words, can sustain on its own, because moment we have this methyl radical, that is why this name initiation. So, once the reaction is initiated by formation of this methyl radical, it can be propagated indefinitely in principle. Why? Because if one methyl radical will give this CH3CO, CH3CO will regenerate CH3 and close the loop. So, these are what are called as propagation reactions. The name is self explanatory, because these are the set of reactions which are propagating by themselves. Now, if this last reaction was not there, then imagine what would happen. Just presence of one methyl radical is enough to keep this process going in cycles indefinitely, and rate of such reaction will be extremely fast, or the reaction will end only when the entire acetaldehyde has been broken down. That means always 100% conversion. But the experience tells us that that is not the case. That is, acetaldehyde decomposition does not end only when acetaldehyde is exhausted, and it does not happen at an infinitely fast rate, which implies that there must be some other reaction which is taking away the important constituent which keeps this reaction propagating, namely this methyl radical. So, what happens as shown in the fourth reaction is this methyl radical combined with another methyl radical to give rise to ethane. So, this now, if there is a source of methyl radical in the initiation step, the last step is a sink, because in this methyl radicals are getting consumed, and therefore, this reaction is referred to as termination reaction. So, this is a characteristic of a typical chain reaction. So, what do we have here? 4 steps in general: initiation, propagation, termination. Propagation need not be only 2-step process, it could be several steps, but the key point is that something at a later stage feeds back into an earlier step in a reaction. Now, there are several things to be noted. I mentioned earlier that in a reaction sequence, all products have to be explained. So, that is clear that we have methane as one product, carbon monoxide as a product, but there is also a side product, namely ethane, and it does not show up as a overall reaction. And that is also a characteristic of a chain reaction, that there will be some products which are insignificant and therefore are not counted as major products of the reaction. Why is it insignificant? Because had this reaction been significant, then we would have formation of methyl radical and its combination with another methyl radical and reaction terminating instantaneously. That means almost 0 rate, but that is not the case. So, it is clear that termination reaction rate is fairly small compared to propagation reaction step. So, now let us try to see how do we go from this particular mechanism to deriving the kinetics. But before we do that, let us rewrite this in a slightly different form, so that we see the cyclic nature of this reaction. So, what I am going to do is I am going to write the same reaction in a slightly different form. So, I start with acetaldehyde and I am going to call it A. Okay. This acetaldehyde, as so, let me number these reactions as 1, 2, 3 and 4. So, the first reaction gives rise to a methyl radical. So, that is my reaction 1. This methyl radical combines with another acetaldehyde and gives rise to CH3CO, okay, liberating the first product methane. So, that is my reaction 2. This radical CH3CO decomposes to regenerate CH3 and the other product CO. So, that is my reaction 3. And 2 methyl radicals combine with each other, giving rise to ethane. That is my reaction 4. So, now you will appreciate the cyclic nature if you focus on once initiation has happened, that is step 1 has taken place, the cycle can continue forever till such time that termination takes place, and that is the importance of termination reaction. So, even though we say that propagation reactions are faster, but termination reaction is an important role to play. So, let us try to determine the kinetics of this particular process. Okay. So, the best way of doing this is, let us write down the mass balances. So, assuming that this reaction is taking place in a closed system, I am going to write mass balance of this particular system, and to keep discussion little simple, I am just going to label this species 1, 2, 3, this as A. So, A, this is already 2, this is 4, this is product P1, this is again species 4. So, this is 2, this is 4, this is giving rise to 2 and product P2, and this is again 2 giving rise to some products. Okay. So, I have labeled my species 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, which are the key species in this reaction. So, C1, C2, C3, C4 are going to be the concentrations of these four species. So, let us write down the balance on acetaldehyde first. Okay. And these reactions we are going to call 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, we will just simply write reactant rate constants as K1, K2, K3, K4 for these 4 reactions, or it is still better. Let us call this initiation rate constant Ki, this propagation step 1 Kp1, this as Kp2 and this as Kt. Okay. So, let us write down the mass balance equations as minus Ki into Ca or C1, because we call this methanol as acetaldehyde as 1. So, let us call this as species 1, okay, to avoid any confusion. So, what we are saying is that we will call this acetaldehyde species 1 to be consistent. Okay. So, this C1 is Ki into C1 minus Kp1 from the second reaction into C1 into C2. Okay. Similarly, d dt of C2 will be Ki into C1 coming from the first reaction, getting consumed in the second reaction, once again getting consumed or getting formed in the third reaction. Okay. Oh, sorry. and getting consumed in the fourth reaction. And for fourth reaction, since two molecules are involved, we will write the rate as 2 kT into C2 square. Remember, this is an elementary reaction. So, the order of this reaction is same as its molecularity. So, we have C2 square and we have two molecules, two radicals, methyl radicals combining, and hence we write the reaction as with the stoichiometric coefficient -2. So, what does that mean? That means kT into C2 square is the rate of this reaction, and therefore, we write this. Let us write the same thing for C4 now. Okay. It is getting formed in the second reaction. So, and getting consumed in the third reaction. So, we have C4. Okay. Now, what is the rate of methane formation? As per this is Kp1 C1 C2. What is the rate of CO formation? So, as per third reaction, okay. Now, if you look at the kinetics expressions, it involves two species C2 and C4, which are radicals, and their concentration is difficult to determine. So, what are we going to do? We are going to use quasi steady state approximation. Why? How do we justify quasi steady state? We say that these radicals are highly active, and so moment they are formed, they participate in the reaction in a fairly quickly, and therefore, their concentrations are very small, and dC to dt or their dynamics is also very small, and so we have quasi steady state. So, before we invoke quasi steady state approximation, let me recap. We have the overall reaction, which we wrote in terms of its constituent reactions. So, the mechanism of this reaction, and we want to invoke certain approximations or make certain assumptions. In this particular case, we make the assumption that these methyl radicals CH3 and CH3CO radicals are highly reactive, and therefore, their dynamics is very slow, or they get formed, they get consumed, formed, consumed. So, very fast dynamics. So, quasi steady state is a reasonable assumption for this species. So, in order to invoke quasi steady state, we write the mass balance equations, which is what we have written over here. The next step is to therefore invoke now quasi steady state approximation. So, we will invoke it for species 2 and 4. So, let us start with species 4. So, there we see that Kp1 C1 C2, that is, if we said dC4 dt is close to 0 because quasi steady state, Kp1 C1 C2 is Kp2 C4. Okay. So, that is the first result. Why are we doing this? Because we have our rate expressions we have our rate expressions which are in terms of C2 and C4 concentrations, and we do not know what these concentrations are. So, we want to eliminate them, so that everything is in terms of C1, because that is the only reactant over here, and P1 and P2, but they are not participating or there is no feedback. So, in this particular case it is not reversible reaction. So, we want to eliminate C2 and C4 in terms of so dC4 dt gave us this particular. Now, what is the significance of this? If you remember, for our overall reaction we will have certain rate as we have been defining earlier, and RCH4 or the rate of formation of methane must be the stoichiometric coefficient times this R. So, RCH4 must be R. Similarly, RCO2 must be also R. So, this is R, this also is R, and this approximation tells us that indeed that is the correct case. That is Kp1 C1 C2 is same, that is Kp1 C1 C2 is same as Kp2 C4. That means both these are equal, and we call that as R. So, that is a good sign that we are not, our assumption is a good assumption. Then we invoke the same assumption for dC to dt balance or balance for species 2, and you will notice because of this quasi steady state approximation for species 4, the second term and the fourth term or third term cancel each other, and we are left with Ki C1 is 2 kT into C2 square from this rate expression. What does this mean? This means that I now have concentration of C2 in terms of C1, and that is what we have been looking for. So, concentration of C2, that is the radical in terms of a species whose concentration we can measure. So, let us revisit overall reaction, mechanism, mass balances, quasi steady state approximation, and the simplification of that. So, now let us look at what happens as a consequence of this, and to do that I am going to, this is becoming too crowded now. So, let us remove some of the old part of the discussion. And take it from the last point, and therefore, then say that my rate of this reaction, which is RCH4 RCO over here C1 C2. So, that is Kp1 into Ki by 2 kT raised to half C1 raised to half into C1. So, this is I have substituted for C2 now, and the net result is that we now have R as some constant k C1 raised to 3 by 2, which is what experimentally observed rate. So, we now therefore complete this discussion. So, we have the desired rate. This particular example illustrates several aspects. If you go back to our rate expression, we said that this first and third reaction are slower and so on. So, does it mean that their rates or rate constants do not matter? No, it does matter. In fact, if you look at the rate expression, the kinetic constant k is actually has propagation constant Kp1, Ki and 2 Kt. That is, if you look at this particular expression. So, rate constant of initiation and termination do matter. Okay. So, that is point 1. Point 2, if you look at this approximation for C2 over here, we see that the initiation rate, that is rate of this first reaction, equals the rate of termination reaction, the fourth reaction, and this also is a typical of a chain reaction, that is reaction 1 is equal to reaction 4, the rates of these reactions. So, that is one example. I will quickly go through second example, polymerization reaction and particularly chain polymerization, because as you would know, the polymerization reactions are of several types: condensation polymerization, addition polymerization and so on. But we will look at only one such example here, that is chain polymerization, which is also a chain reaction mechanism. Okay. So, in particular we are looking at ethyl the polymers whose monomer can be represented as CH2 double bond CHX. Okay. So, if X is a hydrogen, we have ethylene and polyethylene. If X is chlorine, we have vinyl chloride and polyvinyl chloride PVC. If it is styrene C6H5, we have polystyrene. So, all these polyethylene, polyvinyl chloride, polystyrene and several others can be represented polymerization reactions by looking at monomer as CH2 double bond CHX, and initiator for such polymerization reaction there are several. It can be even light energy, but there can be chemicals also like benzoyl peroxide. Benzoyl peroxide which is shown over here. So, the first step is benzoyl peroxide gives rise to benzoyl radicals, okay, and this benzoyl radical binds with Rx. I am going to call this CH2C double bond CH as R and X as the appropriate side group, that is H or chlorine or C6H5 and so on. So, we have 5 joining with Rx giving rise to another radical phi Rx dot. Then this phi Rx dot in a propagation reaction. So, we have propagation now, phi Rx dot binds with Rx gives rise to phi R Rx radical, and this reaction continues. So, for example, this particular radical addition of Rx gives rise to phi Rj Rx. So, these are all propagation reactions, and then we have termination reaction phi Rj minus 1 x combining with another radical. So, having I monomeric units and j monomeric units combined to give phi polymer with phi polymer with I plus j monomeric units. Okay. Now, the kinetics of this, we will write it as in terms of reaction scheme. So, initiator giving rise to free radicals, step 1, free radical benzoyl peroxide combining with monomer giving rise to a live radical R 1, then R propagation reactions, that is R 1 combining with one monomer giving rise to R 2, R 2 plus M R 3. So, in general R j minus 1 plus M as R j. So, these are all propagation reaction, and the termination reaction R j plus R I giving rise to P I plus j. So, these are the typical rate constants of these reactions. Initiation and termination being fairly small, this should be minus sign here, fairly small compared to propagation reaction step. So, how do we determine the kinetics of this polymerization? Same strategy. We have a mechanism and we are going to invoke quasi steady state approximation for all these radicals R 1, R 2, R 3, R I, R j, R n. Remember, this is an infinitely long process, and therefore, we have polymer chain distribution and so on. So, how do we determine the kinetics? In a simple manner, you can work out these details by yourself. It is writing for a given species its appearance and disappearance rate. So, we have initiator of radical, live polymer R 1, live polymer R j, and the polymer P j, which is in this particular case formed from R 2 live radicals R 1 and R 2 combining. So, we now then invoke quasi steady state approximation for this species. That means, what does it mean? That means, d phi dt, for example, its appearance rate minus disappearance rate. That is true for any species, right. The formation is a balance between appearance and disappearance. So, for quasi steady state approximation to be invoked, this must be equal, these two rates are equal, and so on for all the species. Now, using some properties of infinite chains, because this is a polymer chain, we can actually simplify that by in terms of initiation rate, the total radicals, that is R 1, R 2, R 3, R phi, R infinity, is given in terms of this initiation rate R I and the initiation rate constant K A. Then monomer consumption rate, this is referred to as total radicals tau 0, monomer consumption rate, radical concentration any species R j in this particular form, which can also be written as gamma times psi raised to j, and the polymer generation rate, which is in terms of this R j minus 1 into some constant. Now, if we look at the structure of this, we notice the following. The importance of initiator, for example. If initiator is not there, I is 0, then it turns out that all these rates go to 0. That is, if initiation rate is 0, then total radical concentration is 0, monomer consumption is 0, individual radical concentration is 0, polymer generation rate is 0. It also implies that if initiator concentration rate I, why am I saying this? Because in all these rate expressions Ri is there, Ri, 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 Ri and so on. So, if initiator concentration goes to 0, that means this goes to 0, Ri will go to 0 and all these rates will go to 0. That is the importance of initiator. Its importance can also be felt in the following manner, expressed in the following manner. If initiator concentration is small, then I is small, so Ri is small and then all rates will be small. In other words, we have to maintain initiator concentration at a high value, and furthermore it is often maintained at a constant value. Now, if we look at these expressions once again, we also notice the following. These radical concentrations, for example, Rj, okay, as a function of J. What is J? J is the number of monomeric units 1, 2, 3, 4 and infinity. It actually always falls down, and that is to be expected because here Rj comes from J minus 1, J minus 1 comes from J minus 2 and so on. So, J minus 2 concentration is always higher than J minus 1 is always higher than J. So, it is monotonically decreasing. Now, if you look at the rate of polymerization, we find that Rj function is continuously decreasing as function of J, J minus 1 is continuously increasing. Hence, the product of the two, if you plot it as Rpj as a function of J, it always goes through a maxima, and that is that distribution of the polymer that we find. The weight fraction of the jth component as a function of J or its molecular weight, we always see that there is a unimodal distribution, and our kinetics can explain that. So, with this we come to the end of this particular session, and here today we saw two examples, that of chain reactions and polymerization reaction, and how we use quasi steady state approximation to determine the kinetics. In the next session, we are going to look at catalytic reactions and the kinetic rate expressions of catalytic reactions. Thank you.